Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today is April 8th, and this is another of our bi-weekly SIG CLI meetings. My name is Maciej, and I'll be your host today. So I don't have any particular announcements. I was looking for Y19 dates a minute ago, and I have not seen any dates published yet. So I'm guessing that they should show up probably sometime next week or so. Then we will be able to talk a little bit more about it. Either way, today the main topic of our meeting will be 119 planning, because I'm pretty sure that with 118 out of the gates, people want to start cramming the new awesome features into 119. Sean, do you have any announcements that you want to add with regards to 118 releases?
There was a couple. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
There was a couple of issues with the 118.0 kubectl, and they've just cut the 118.1, which has some of those fixes, and so we'll communicate more broadly to the rest of the Kubernetes community. But we should all know that that first version of 118.0 had some issues with diff and with apply, and so those should we should realize that that particular version of kubectl is not to be used.
Okay. Okay, with that out of the way, I think we can jump on to the 119 planning. From the SIG CLI leading team, the one and most important bit that we will continue our journey with is the move of kubectl to the staging repository. As it is today, we are still 2 items left on that list, and the biggest offender on that list is auth reconcile. The reason for that is the code that the auth reconcile is using is shared with the API server, and the overall agreement is that we don't want to duplicate the code, because that would that might cause risk of diverging the code base, or one being outdated versus the other. So we figure out that the best option would be to extract the code into a library. There has been done some initial moves towards that, but I need to refresh where we are with this one, and hopefully we'll be able to finish that one in the upcoming weeks. The next two topics that I've added for 119 are the new commands. The first one is being driven by Lee Verbone. Lee put together a proposal about using ephemeral containers for debugging application with kubectl debug, and he was very diligent to start cranking the code behind the kubectl debug command. He's already pinging me about follow-ups that will be added to the 119. So he's currently working on those bits. The kubectl events is another alpha command that we will be adding. Unfortunately, we didn't make it for 118. We only managed to put together a proposal for kubectl events, and Hipanshu should put together the commands. I'm hoping we will be able to move the actual implementation within 119. The next topic is a follow-up to the server-side print. As you might be aware of, when you are kubectl getting resources from the server, it is the server that dictates the get command how these resources should be printed. The reason for that is, one, we want to have a consistent way of printing resources across all the clients, including kubectl, as well as other clients that can be written in different languages, programming languages, as well as the ability to for the server to tell the clients how to print resources also allows clients to understand the CRDs which are registered on the server without having extra types being baked in on the service on the client side. We would like to continue the same steps, but this time with the kubectl describe command. Most probably the majority of the work will happen in the SIG API machinery, but we'll also be involved in the client side work. And the rollout will be most probably similar to what we've done with kubectl get, that it will be an alpha command, and over time it will get the default values, and we'll slowly get rid of the code responsible for actually printing the resources in the client. That will, again, the same benefits, meaning we will have a consistency across all of the clients. And most importantly, we will have a more richful describe for CRDs, which is currently not possible. So I'm hoping to work with Clayton on that one and at least put a proposal for this one, and maybe start some initial implementation. The next topic, and then I promise I'll shut up, is command metrics. Philip put a proposal about half a year ago or so about the ability to send over to the server the information about the commands that are being executed by the users, as well as the flags and additional metadata that we can then log on the server and try to gather some statistics around those data. Those statistics should allow in the long run to help us gather information about how kubectl is being used, or what kind of functionality is the most useful for user, or where they're having some issues with. I think these were the main topics that I wanted to brought to your attention. I see that John Ryan put together one another. Want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, the summary of this is that in the describe command, if there's sensitive data in an annotation, we display that. It's normally not a problem in when you run the apply command. There's an annotation that's added that shows a copy of the object, and we currently skip showing that annotation specifically. There's other tooling that wants to do the same trick to like capture the state of the object on an annotation, absent any other location to put that, to do things like diffing and features that could work off of that. So this is not a prescriptive suggestion, but trying to keep to the apparent design goal of describe in having it be rather sanitized, not accidentally showing sensitive data. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, that makes sense. When you were talking about the server, the kubectl apply command, I realized that there was also this other topic that I wanted to put together on this list, is that with the server-side apply, a lot of data is being put into the metadata of any resource. And similarly to how we are hiding the annotation in the scribe for kubectl apply, we are considering hiding the entire metadata that is server-side related. Because currently, if you kubectl apply a resource, and then you open that same resource with kubectl edit, not only you'll see your actual resource, but the same amount of data you will see as the server-side related applied data. That will be confusing to a lot of the users. So I spoke with Sean and Phil about this earlier this week, and we agreed that it is reasonable for kubectl edit to hide that piece of information, because first of all, you should not be modifying that. I'm not sure if even if you are allowed to do it in the first place. Basically, you should not. And it will be only confusing for the majority of the users when you will be reading those data. Obviously, for kubectl get, when you specify -o, yum, or JSON, that will not change, and you will get the entire resource as is, because that is the full yum, and we are not cutting anything out of those yums, and that won't change. But for edit, it does make sense. And also there's a proposal, I'm not sure how far I can go with this one, to be able to enrich the edit data with the information from the kubectl explain, which is from the OpenAPI schema. Currently, if you do, you can type kubectl explain pod spec, you will get information about the structure of this pod spec. And each field, assuming it is properly documented in the API, will provide you some hints about what kind of resources it is. Basically a short description of that field. And we are thinking that maybe placing that data inside of the kubectl edit resource will be valuable for a lot of users when they are editing those. We might probably start with hiding those behind a flag before we'll enable those by default, but that's a future goal that I'll probably should add to the list as well.
So John, just one quick note. We usually keep our, and this is kind of strange, we usually keep our issues in our own repository, even though the code is still in the Kubernetes repository. Our issues are under the Kubernetes kubectl repository. It seems like everybody, not everybody, but quite a few people are still able to find it and to comment on it. Yeah, so we probably don't want to move it now, but in the future, I guess we're keeping our issues in the kubectl repository.
Yeah, I discovered that after the fact as well. Sorry if it creates any confusion, but yeah, I'm with you on, we can leave it for now, but I'll definitely know better for next time. Thanks.
I mean,
So I think, John, for your issue, so it sounds like the issue you're encountering is you're storing data about the object itself inside the annotation, that secrets have data that we typically don't want to print to the console, like if you're logging it from a CI/CD system or something like that. And you don't want that annotation printed as part of describe. And maybe it would help to have a little bit of background information. What are you doing? Why are you storing the data in an annotation on the object?
Yeah, so this is a tool out of the K14S project called CAP. And it is a deployment tool that helps the operator treat a collection of resources as a application. And as a part of that, it's helping with a little bit of life cycle. So detecting when there are differences from when I go to update any of those resources through this tool, knowing what the state was compared to what the current value of the YAML I'm about to apply is very useful for optimizing that operation, for making sure I don't change things that don't need to be changed, things of that nature. Yeah,
So this is an alternative implementation of apply. Is that correct? Or is it something different?
Yeah, it's apply plus because through this additional metadata, a set of resources can be treated as a group, and operations can be applied against it. There's semantics in this tool in CAP, KAPP. There's semantics in the tool for suggesting or requiring ordering of resources. CAP waits for custom resource definitions to be applied and be available, along other resources where there are some dependencies. You can name some of that. It helps out with merging data. So if there were changes that were made by other tooling, it can attempt to rebase an object and apply changes after that. So there's like additional capabilities.
With server-side apply, do you see, so specifically with the like a lot of that stuff sounds like it's not impacted by this issue. It really seems to be like, is it correct that this issue really only impacts the updating the object remote, like detecting diffs and merging in local configuration to the remote object? Effectively what apply does, but maybe with if that's the case, then do you still, like, does server-side apply impact anything about how you're doing it? Because the way server-side apply is working is it's not storing values anymore. So it kind of gets around this problem. Server-side apply only stores field ownership. So it would say like, this actor owns the data field, or this actor owns this key in the data field, but not this is also the data.
Hmm.
Does that, like, would you be able to leverage that sort of field ownership, do you think, to address, since we're moving away from that technique for apply, like, do you see yourselves, is this something you'd consider, or do you think you'll just probably continue to stick with the current implementation?
That's a great question. I'm personally just becoming aware of the server side apply. So yeah, there might be some more options there that I wasn't aware of.
Okay. Because so like my high level thoughts, and I think I left a couple of these on the issue, are this, like, it definitely makes sense what you're asking for. Doing it the way we did it for secrets is a hack, and probably one I wish we didn't have. This is going to impact everyone who currently describes secrets, like how they view it, right? And so that's going to disappear for them. From an API perspective, we don't have backwards compatibility constraints on the output of describe. So if you're like using describe to parse data out, then we may break you. On the other hand, people do it anyway. We see them do it quite a bit. We occasionally break them, and then it's a bad experience for them. So even though we don't have a strict guarantee, we promise not to break this, I would say it's not, like, when we update that stuff, we try to do it in a way that isn't going to break people that are parsing data out of there. And then the other thing I think I'd say is what you're doing, since it's really similar to what like I get the point where we special case the apply annotation because, you know, two reasons. One is we control it. We know it's going to be there. It's, you know, pretty tightly coupled into the kube control tool chain. So it kind of made sense for us to special case it. And also the tools were at a much earlier stage than they are now. And extensibility was less critical at that time compared to just giving something users can use effectively. Now, at this stage in the project, extensibility and the idea that how do we allow the ecosystem and folks such as yourself to build on top of the solutions we provide, I think is becoming a higher priority, right? And so I can imagine today maybe it's secrets and annotations, and tomorrow it's, you know, maybe a deployment in this random field, this random annotation. And maybe it's not that the annotation should be hidden because it's secret. Maybe the annotation should be hidden because it is this like long base 64 encoded, you know, blob that just makes describe look terrible, right? And so, like, I think if we were going to go down the path of allowing folks who are putting metadata into annotations to control how those annotations are described or shown when you describe them, that it'd probably be worth thinking about maybe a more flexible approach where we can say, well, it's not just for hiding secrets, it's also for being able to provide a better piece of output. Maciej, do you have any thoughts on that?
I started solving the problem server side, most probably. I wonder how much you could go with admission plugin that would be removing those data server side, so that they're there,
Well, I think,
and you will accept them, but you will never return them for some use cases. Theoretically, it's doable. Not sure how far you want to go with it, but in general, what Phil said completely does make sense, because that one annotation that we are skipping, we are in full control of it. The rest is it's pretty much similar to what we did with export, and a lot of people were complaining that we are deprecating and removing the export functionality. And the problem with that was that each person's idea of exporting resources from the server was different. One was using export as a backup. Others were using export as a, well, I want to get those resources, but stripped metadata, or just stripped namespace or something else. And we figured out that there are many possible use cases, how users can or want to consume those. The same will apply to annotations. There is infinite number of possibilities what kind of data people would put or will or are already putting in the annotations. So I guess in the pure kubectl, I don't think we can filter those data based on some unknown attributes.
It would have to be done through configuration. Like we could do it through convention, right? You could imagine, like, if your annotation has the name don't show dot whatever, right? Then don't show it, or no display. Obviously, that's a silly example.
Yeah, but
the interesting or go on, Maciej.
Yeah, but then if you're going with the convention, then still again, each team, each group, each organization will have different conventions, and we would have to fit into this many conventions. So
no, I
would steer
we just
towards,
define.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, that's a tricky business that I would prefer not to be in. I would steer towards having some server-side solution that would do this bit for you, since it is definitely something that you want to have that is specifically targeted for your use case.
If I understand John's use case correctly, they're developing a client-side tool, right? And so they want consumers of the client-side tool to be able to consume it. Like they want people to be able to download it, I'd guess, without having to get cluster admin privileges, right? Because then you have to go talk to whoever owns the cluster, right, to install this thing for everyone, and then it introduces the risk of, you know, what if that thing's down and all that sort of stuff. So I definitely understand the like desire to have a lighter weight piece. I think one thing that's interesting to me about this actually is, should different objects be displayed differently based on some context about them, right? So like you could imagine the object itself. This is getting to probably some pretty advanced stuff that we don't support yet, and obviously wouldn't be an immediate fix for this, right? But like thinking about how can we turn this into something that really materially improves what we provide. Like you can imagine different secrets should be displayed different ways, right? And like instead of hard coding, so the first step was hard code into the binary. Here's how you display this particular type. And so now we've hard coded that type is displayed this way. And anything we don't know about, any CRDs, we can't like do, we do a best effort job on, right? The next step would be server-side describe, which is what we're working on, which is dynamic but per type still, right? So the client doesn't know how to display anything, the server does, but the server just knows how to display, this is what a secret looks like, right? Which is better, but like I think what would be really interesting to me is if you go one step further and the server can say not just this is how you display a secret, but this is how you display this secret, right? Because maybe the secret has one piece of data that is plain text and should be shown, and it happens to be in that secret because it's easier to mount in with other stuff in the same secret that shouldn't be displayed. So it'd be nice to show the one data field, but not the other one, right? And you could imagine that like this could be done through data on the object itself, possibly through an annotation or possibly through something else. You know, it would take some time to design, but like that is ultimately where I see maybe the way this being solved. And I think, John, maybe, I guess what I'd suggest is like as an immediate thing, maybe check out the apply pieces, the server-side apply, and consider like, is that a route that maybe server-side apply may alleviate the need for this in the long term, and so maybe we don't need this feature right now. And then if we really think that we need this, think about the problem in the context I just kind of described.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Philip. Both clearly got some homework here to do that, and then understanding kind of where your head's at in terms of the life of this tool chain, and seeing that it's at this point in its maturation where providing first class extensions for things like this is where you're at and not where you were. That's really helpful. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, and then so do follow back up with us. Like if you're able to figure it out or it's not critical or whatever it is, let us know. Or if you're like, oh no, I need some workaround, also let us know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You'll have a hard time getting rid of me.
Thanks, John.
Hey, I appreciate the attention to this and the support. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Good discussion.
Sean, Phil, do you have any topics that you want to fill in for 119 planning with regards to kubectl itself? I do remember that you have some customized that we can move on to right after, but I want to close the 119 for kubectl.
I do not. The only thing I'd love to see in is the headers so that folks who own clusters can understand how tools are being used against their clusters.
Just the those two small issues that we discussed. One about the version skew warning, which might be it's going to be have a high impact, but it would be a small effort to get that out. There's already an issue for putting a warning out in kubectl whenever the version skew is out of spec, out of version client server. And then there's probably going to be a few issues that some of our members here would want to address, removing the Cobra from the options. Those are also going to be, I think, pretty straightforward PRs for people who want to get some of those, want to contribute. It would be a small hurdle to actually make a significant contribution there. And I'll put more on that once we have our first version of that complete with the apply. Then I could send that out to the rest of the group, and we could all tackle the rest of the commands, or try to. Does that make sense?
Actually, we already have an example of the separation between Cobra and options. If I remember correctly, I was when we were talking about it last time, I was also checking, because I remember David put together the wait command, which is still alpha. The wait logic was used and is used within the delete command, so that we could maintain the old behavior of waiting until the resource is being removed. So, the wait command is currently written in such a way that there is a clear separation between the Cobra flags and the actual wait option structure. So it's definitely worthy linking both of the those pieces of code when we merge the apply one into this document. But definitely, yeah, it's something, a good first time issue for people to tackle if you're interested in working on those.
Mache, are you grouping in reworking the current commands that don't have the complete validate and run methods broken out into that?
Maybe it will be worthy, and we should probably create an umbrella issue for switching to the flow where we have the option structure and those three methods, or well, the three is it will always depend on the command, but at least two, where there is a complete, the validate, which is optional most frequently, and then there's the actual run command. Eddie, can I ask you to create two umbrella issues under kubectl for these two, or you will create the one about the new structure, and Sean could create the one about the separation with pointers to specific commands, how this should look like. And then we can point people, or eventually we can have a checklist of what's still left.
Yeah, I planned on tackling that after I finished the PR you just reviewed.
Okay, cool.
That's what I based it off of. And yeah, I'm sure people are going to look at those old commands too to do future work.
Yeah, definitely, that makes sense.
Got it. So my AI is, I'm going to create an umbrella issue for separating the options from the Cobra code, so that options are Cobra free and can be reused in controllers without pulling in CLI stuff.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll ask the other projects, Kui, Crew, and Customize, about their plans for 119. Although I'm guessing that you're not strictly tied to their release cycles, and you're always working tirelessly to to release your bits pretty much continuously. I know that Crew is doing so, and Kui is same, and Customize pretty much as well. But
Pretty
I think,
much.
yeah, pretty much so. That's the benefit of being outside of the main repo, probably. That's what we're targeting with kubectl as well in the long run. But I think it would be nice for other people to know what you're planning and what they might be interested in contributing to those projects.
Yeah, I can do. Where does this go? Is this stand-ups or is this before stand-ups in 119 in planning topics?
I'll probably do along the 119 planning as is. So projects, maybe we'll just skip stand-ups today, and it'll be more about the current state plus the future, which does make sense.
Okay, I can do customize whenever we're ready
Yeah,
for
go
it.
ahead.
Okay. So we probably the big thing for customize is rebasing or migrating the internal infrastructure of customize onto a YAML native libraries. The big win here is going to be that currently Customize uses unstructured, serializes through maps of string interfaces, which drops comments, drops structure, drops everything that isn't, that can't be represented in that map. And so by rebasing, we actually get to keep comments and structure and that sort of stuff, as well as remove a bunch of dependencies that have been problematic for us. The two major things likely to come out of this. The first is that once this is completed, we should be able to update the customized version in kubectl because we'll no longer depend on dependencies out of staging. That could also be done if kubectl moves out of staging too. So either one of those should get us in a good spot. The second thing it's going to get us is that we've been developing different libraries built on top of these YAML native libraries that allow us to do some pretty interesting things with respect to schema and embedding schema within resources themselves and doing per object schema. And so, for instance, you should be able to specify on a particular field, use this merge key for this field, which will allow you to, one, override things where the merge key is probably not the merge key you want. Port is an example of this. The port merge key is, I think, the port number or something, and so makes it difficult to patch. And so you could overwrite it and say, no, use the name as the merge key, for instance, for the port. The second thing, it also allows you to specify how types that may not be built in are merged, right? So for your CRD, you can mark up the different fields and say, okay, merge based on this or that. You could also, instead of marking it directly on that object, you could include those open API definitions and load them. And so we merge them through there. So in addition to being able to keep the YAML and structure in your customized output, which means it'll be more stable, instead of using maps which randomize keys, and then the diffs will look different each time maybe you build, you'll get a better output. Although I can't remember, maybe the maps sort the keys, so maybe it's stable anyway and it just shuffles things around. All right, that's all for customize. That's the main thing for customize. We're doing some other stuff, but that's the major initiative.
Okay, thanks. Crew.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. and see your cat on the hat.
Okay. Yep, that's snap camera. That's actually not real. So hey, Ahmed here. So small update about Crew. We have refreshed our doc site. We have pretty good organized documentation now. Although most things users need to know is in one page called Quick Start, which is pretty short. The rest is mostly about how developers should distribute plugins and best practices around that. We actually took the time to also sit down and write how you should approach plugin development and like what you should reuse and what you should pay attention to. So it's a pretty good guide to kubectl plugins in general. So the next big work that is happening right now is Chris Kim, who's also in the call right now, is working on supporting the multiple plugin indexes. I added a link to the umbrella issue we finally created. Right now we're pretty good. We have a pretty solid prototype that's working. This is going to allow people to distribute plugins that we have previously rejected from the centralized index, because we do that actually quite a lot. People come us to plugins that they don't have a particular focus, or they are just doing something that another plugin was already doing. So we're typically rejecting those plugins, but mainly right now we're enabling people to distribute plugins at their cadence. We're also trying to add tooling so that other plugin index owners can actually validate plugins as well. So that's a Crew update.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks. What about Kui?
Hey, yo. So I have Meng Ting on the call as well here. She's on my team. Just wanted to give her another shout out. We've been working, so the near future, I think we're going to continue the work we've just been doing that I summarized in the docs. So we've recently added a lot of updates to our READMEs and documentation, and Meng Ting is hard at work to finish that work up. I know that Eddie, you volunteered last week to help out a bit, writing some support. And I sort of pushed back, I delayed that a bit, hoping we could finish the docs. Once we have the docs in gear to help developers on board, then we can open I think, the gates a little more, or rely with a little more confidence. So I think we're pretty close to that. Meng Ting is doing a great job on the documentation. We also recently added some support, initial support for augmenting and visualizing some of the Crew aspects of Crew, like Crew list, and then you can get a nice sidecar showing a summary of the plugins, the status of the plugins, and so on. And also for customize, we have some initial support there as well. So if you say customize, on a directory, you'll get back I think a pretty nice summary. It's a start at least for summarizing the output of the customize command. In addition, when you do a create or apply-k, you'll now get the full CUI status table. So if you do an apply-k on a directory, you'll get a nice summary of everything the status of everything that's being deployed. So the hope is that now we have a firm foundation, we can really start bringing people on board to fill in these kinds of gaps for customizing Crew and other kinds of new features. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you for awesome work. Okay.
By the way, I'm super interested in seeing a demo sometime, maybe next time.
Oh, you missed demo. There was one last meeting, if I remember correctly.
Okay, I'll go watch that. Sorry, I wasn't there.
The cat is driving me crazy.
Oh, we also, by the way, have some initial support for, I know this is of less interest for the SIG CLI, but we've actually got a lot of interest in the large, interestingly enough, for having hosted versions of CUI. In fact, the two products are using hosted CUI and not the Electron-based CUI. And I had a third request just last week for a hosted-based CUI as well. So we're actually ramping up that as well a bit too. Of course, it works because we have product space on it, but it was very ad hoc and piecemeal. And so the hope is that we can actually make, and we have some PR for this to give initial support for using, having a real customized based deployment story for deploying CUI to your cloud.
And Nick, actually, would hosted CUI run on Kubernetes?
Yeah, that's the idea. And actually, I'm not going to demo this link online because I don't want the URL recorded. But if you guys want a link to the hosted CUI, just Slack me on offline private message.
I'll get out of bed.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Would that be like a GitOps workflow? Because CUI, or would that be hosted CUI would talk to the cluster using the credentials of the person in the connecting to it through the web browser? Is that how it would work?
Yeah, so we don't really have a really great SPI for the multi-tenancy story, and that's part of the work we need to round this out. For example, one of our users has a very kind of idiosyncratic multi-tenancy model, another has a pod-based multi-tenancy model, and so we need to work out some of the details there for how we can abstract that out. But the idea is that we can solve it in a couple of different ways. So just to summarize it quickly, but at the very least, the link I'll send you guys if you want offline, you can actually, it'll be credentialless. So you won't be able to do any applies or deletes or creates, but you can actually view the Kubernetes documentation, things like that. You know, simple stuff.
We can't mine Bitcoins on your cluster. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's why you might be able to. This is why I'm asking you to direct message me offline.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, awesome. Okay, we are slowly closing our meeting. Does anyone wanted to, I don't know, share some notes, some ideas? I remember that Trinidad is a new one. He mentioned shortly that at the beginning. If you want to say hi to everyone, or you want to, you're looking for some of the advice or stuff like that, just that's your time to do it.
Sure. I'm Trinidad. I'm located in San Antonio, Texas, and I'm transitioning from a retail company to an insurance company. But with the growth of containers and cloud technologies, I think it's something that, as someone who applies a lot of this stuff, needs to get a little bit deeper into, and I decided to kind of lurk around some of the SIG groups, see where I can help and get more familiar with. I was thinking about maybe joining the docs group. I think that'd be a good place to start, but I love command line, so I thought maybe if there's something low level I can help out with, I'd like to help out where I can.
Yeah, definitely. Welcome on board. If you have any questions, our Slack channel is open for questions.
Okay, awesome.
Sometimes it takes some of us a little bit of time to respond, but we eventually do. So
awesome. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other topics that I want to bring up?
Oh, I wanted to say hi too. My name's Aaron Clausen. I'm actually out of Austin, Texas, so not too far from you, Trinidad.
Hey, Aaron.
I'm working at Circle CI right now. We're exploring Kustomize a little bit. Also, just as a lark, I saw the KYAML that is coming out of the Kustomize project, and I'm putting together a linter based on that, because trying to do that before with the unstructured package was a nightmare, and I gave up halfway through it once.
Awesome.
So.
Yeah, I'm actually, if you're doing a linter, we're actually just digging into some really interesting stuff there with how to get specific line numbers and columns and fields and that sort of thing, and then have warning versus error versus info messages and this sort of stuff. And the idea is that we'll be able to actually develop really high fidelity linters that you can take the output of and plug it into your system. Yeah, if you want to, you can feel free to connect with me, and we can talk about that more.
Yeah, definitely will. But I also have to run because I have another meeting that starts in a couple minutes. So thank you all for having me.
Nice meeting you, Aaron.
Nice meeting you.
Trinidad, it sounded like you were looking for work. Is that correct? Sorry, I missed some of the context. Or just wanted to, were you asking for issues, or were you mainly saying you want to be able to participate in the discussions and that sort of thing?
Yeah, basically, I'd like to help out where I can. I was thinking, like I said earlier, joining the docs group, maybe helping out there. But something that's low level or something that because I'm just getting into the Kubernetes area, but I'm just going to dive into the pool and try and help out where I can.
Yeah, maybe Eddie, you're on the call, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
do you have any tips? I know that you've recently or like it wasn't so long ago that you were in a similar position, and now I feel like you've really ramped up successfully.
Oh, that's super kind of you. We definitely, so every month we do a bug scrub where we go through some open issues on the kubectl repos, and hopefully we want to branch out to customizing some other projects eventually. So that's a good place. We found some that could be carved out last time. The umbrella issues that Maciej was talking about earlier with Sean and I, they'll definitely have a bunch of work that will be good for first timers. It's kind of refactoring some existing commands, and it'll be a good way to get to know the code base. Other than that, just showing up and reading the open issues and helping out with what you can.
How do I tap into that that group you just mentioned?
If you join the mailing list, to
Okay.
the SIG CLI mailing list, you'll
Gotcha.
get invited to all the meetings like this one.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
Really quickly, I'm Andrew Whitrock. I'm with John Ryan over at Pivotal VMware, and this is also my first time at one of these meetings. So I just wanted to say thank you for putting some time towards our concerns and like discussing it with us.
Welcome.
For those of you who don't know, Andrew did the Kubernetes API docs. So when you go to the API docs, he's responsible for the framework that supports that. He's also my brother, in case you were wondering based on the last name.
This is also true.
I was wondering about that one.
You didn't want to admit it, Andrew?
I'm very proud of my brother, but you know, he's way cooler than I am. So
I just noticed too, and I was like, wait, there's two Whitrocks. Have I been like getting them confused this whole time? Or so yeah, I'm glad we cleared that up.
Okay, I think with that happy note, we can close this meeting. Thank you very much all for attending, and stay safe and have a good one. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, team.